in and around politics and the political machine that's out there right now is that we're also at a point where it used to be, okay, presidential election once every 4 years. There would be a ramp up to that election 8, 9, 10 months beforehand. Now we're in a world where everything's politics. It seems like there's no break in that cycle.
Yes.
So the politics just come at you on a consistent basis. There's no time for a company to deliver a message and not having the potential of political backlash or
100%
from the public right now. Welcome back to the Ripple Effect Podcast. We're excited to bring you part 2 of our special 2-episode series. In this installment, we'll be diving even deeper into how brands are playing it safe during elections with Wharton professor Americus Reed. If you missed part 1, be sure to check it out for the complete picture. Let's get started and uncover more fascinating insights. What's the expectation then going forward, do you think? Does it get easier to be able to do this, or does it get harder to be able to do this because seemingly that component of social media keeps that tribalism front and center almost on a daily basis right now?
Yeah, I think it's going to become harder to do this in the sense that, in some ways, it's an interesting point that you make. Maybe actually a little bit of both, because in some senses it's easier because people are now self-selecting their information from their various ecosystems where they get their news and their entertainment and things like that. Right. So they can just go to exactly where everything they want to believe is reaffirmed. Right. So that helps the brands that want to be there messaging to them. Right. It's harder in the sense that, like anything else, the more companies that are doing this, the less differentiation it creates. Right. So if everyone's doing it, then it's sort of like, it doesn't really make you stand out as a brand, product, or service or organization.
Well, and then I guess we also have to bring up the component of what it ends up meaning within the walls of the company as well.
Yeah.
When you think about something like what happened with Google and some of the stances that Google was taking and how it was being perceived and reacted to by the people that were working for the company, and obviously the concerns that those people had, and obviously we saw some of the protests out there as well.
Yeah, you're pointing to something, again, that's the hornet's nest here. It's the double-edged sword. It says that, on one hand, taking a political or ideological viewpoint also is good on the employee side because it communicates, what you stand for and the type of employee you'd like to attract to that organization. So from an organizational culture point of view, it can be a very good thing because we can say like, hey, these values, this mission of this particular company, very clear to your point. I understand it. I'm going to work there because of it.
Right.
And so, in that sense, you're creating the potential for happier employees because they believe they're going into an environment where their values are reaffirmed and shared by like-minded others.
Right.
On the other hand, that also has a potential, Dan, to squash diversity because in some senses, you do want like different points of view, different perspectives that are sort of part of this decision making so you can get the totality of the efficacy of making really good market decisions because you've got a lot of perspectives. So again, a double-edged sword here.
Look, obviously when we talk about this, we also need to talk about it from the business side because for a lot of these companies, they're going to end up making bottom line impact decisions because of some of these components. And I think it, again, brings us back to that element of what we believe a company should be in and around, to a degree, the social component and the values component in comparison to what the company wants to see on that bottom line and the success and the profit that they want to see every quarter.
Yeah, I love that point. That is the tension here that exists here, Dan. And the decision calculus says, again, we'll go back to the original point we were discussing earlier. The idea is that net, I might lose some people, but the people I gain should be more valuable because they are coming to the tribe not just because of the stuff. They're coming to the tribe to be affirmed. They're coming because what I'm doing, the brand, product, service, organization, is now identity relevant in a very important way. Yeah. And so that customer lifetime value ought to be a lot higher for that type of person, which then should translate in the long game to higher profits, more value that's being added, harder to take those customers away because they're super loyal to you on the basis of these political ideological viewpoints.
But the company also has to be very aware of, especially when you think about the component of social media, we see it more and more where companies are concerned about a message from a organization, company, firm, whatever it is, that they don't agree with, that ends up showing up on the page, on the side, by their, their Twitter account, their X account, Instagram, whatever it is, that they believe they have a fairly safe haven to be able to send a message forward, but they don't because of how the platform is bringing forward the message of other companies and their advertising or their promotion.
That's right. And then those messages are going to, this happened on X recently, where you might have different sorts of political ideological viewpoints showing up in a feed.
Yeah.
And that has impact, like you said. And so, again, companies have to be okay with giving up some of this control. If consumers are going to be sort of out there as consumer vigilantes with that little cell phone in their pocket, and they're taking pictures and doing stuff, sending stuff around the world, and you just have to live with that. So you have to manage it. And if you're doing it right and you're customer centric and you're involving them in the process, you're able to self-regulate some of that activity.
But that's something that's very hard for companies to give up.
It's very difficult. Yeah, it takes discipline, because we as marketers have loved the old model where we stand on the mountaintop and we shout down to the people. Traditional advertising. There you go.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Exactly.
And that's it.
And that's it. But now they talk back to us and say, no, that's BS. Or they say, we want to know what you stand for. Tell us.
Yeah.
Now you have to fill that silence.
We're talking with Americus Reed, marketing professor here at the Wharton School. I talked about the future. So then the focus for the companies has to be even more tighter and focused as they move forward in terms of that messaging and that delivery and how they're getting that message out to the consumer, because again, everything is out there in the open.
Yeah, everything is transparent. Consumer, that's the beautiful thing about today's day and age, Dan, as you said it. If the cost of search is zero. So you can understand anything you want to understand. And the Google machine, it's out there. And you can just pull whatever you need to know about a company and all of that. So companies have to be very careful now on what are you saying in what channels, because it's all out there and it is easily observable and easily searchable and findable. And, that's just part of that tension that the C-suite is going to have to get used to dealing with, because I don't think it's going away. It may even get more amplified in the future.
The other component, going back to kind of how we started this whole conversation in and around politics and the political machine that's out there right now, is that we're also at a point where it used to be, okay, presidential election once every 4 years, there would be a ramp up to that election 8, 9, 10 months beforehand. Now we're in a world where everything's politics. It seems like there's no break in that cycle.
Yes.
So the politics just come at you on a consistent basis. There's no time for a company to deliver a message and not having the potential of political backlash or
100%
from the public right now.
That's a great point, Dan, and I love that point, because I think we do live in this highly politicized environment right now. And even the political parties themselves are creating opportunities that brands can respond to. I'll give you an example of this. So Waltz was in a store getting Doritos for Vice President Harris. That's an opportunity for Doritos to say something or not, right?
Yeah.
J.D. Vance said, hey, don't mess with my Mountain Dew, my Diet Mountain Dew. Yeah. It's an opportunity, you know, so you have a choice now, because you're part of the story as to whether or not you want to make some sort of connection, jump on some little trend that happens to sort of get a little bit of bump up, or if you stay out, that's a decision as well.
And realistically, from giving that scenario, it's one of those cases where the company, the brand, may have more rules that they have to consider than the politician who can just,
100%.
I'm looking to get any and all, connection with the media, with social media, whatever.
Yes.
And so I'm going to, make connections unintentionally or maybe intentionally with some of these brands.
I think that's 100% correct. And I think the onus, the difficulty is you have all of these things that are going on in the C-suite. You have the marketers, you have the lawyers who say, what can we say and not say? You have the constituents, you have, the folks that are involved with the stock. There's all these different groups that, your point, you already said it, they have to be managed.
Right.
So these are opportunities that come up, and you have to understand, you just can't go out and do something. You have to understand how all these dots are connected and what you can do that will avoid potential backlash.
How then has it changed for marketers having now seemingly all of these different voices to listen to. I mean, certainly in many cases, when you're bringing a marketing plan, you're going to hear from the C-suite.
Yes.
Now it seems like, as you said, you're going to hear from so many different places.
Yeah, it's the role of the chief marketing officer, Dan. His or her role is totally different now. So they're part communication. We used to never see these people.
Right.
Now you better be camera ready, man. You better be ready to go out there and talk. What's your position? Why are you doing certain things? All of these things. How are you helping customers? And you have to almost be like on the ground with customers, sort of in their domain, living the lives with them, understanding how they're using your products in ways that can facilitate your ability to regulate the messaging that you want to give to them with respect to some of these issues that you may want to align with.
What's the message you send out then to the corporate world about the time we're in, the thought process that they have to enact in order to best serve a lot of different individuals that are out there right now?
Yeah, I love that question. What is the strategy? Well, the strategy is this, Dan. Know your customer. That's point number one. Understand who they are and their particular ideological viewpoints that are inherent in their internal identities. And if you're going to make a decision to do this, I think you have to do it all the way. And live or die with that decision calculus that says that it's more important for us to stand by these values than it is to try to manage incremental sales on the margin. And we're just going to go with this because we believe in this. If these are your values and these are authentic pillars of how you define who you are as a brand, product, or service organization, then they are what they are. And you live or die by that. And you're willing to go out there and be that in an authentic way. And so if you're right, and if you've done it and you understand your customer, this will pay off in the long run because you're going to harness all of that value for these very identity loyal types of individuals.
Until you make that investment and you get burned on it, and then you have to go
then you start over
around a total 180, right?
That's right. And then you walk it all back, you say sorry, and you try it again.
Great seeing you again.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Americus Reed, marketing professor here at the Wharton School.
Thank you for listening to The Ripple Effect. We hope you found this episode informative and engaging. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review so that we can continue to bring you the best insight from the Wharton School.